What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, here we are, fresh out of a Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana week. We'll talk about how the Paraguayan teams fared out, and also what's been going on in the local league, because we did have a big shakeup over the last few days since we last recorded. We're going to talk about who it was, and also the big Superclasico, a big Superclasico coming the way this weekend over there in Paraguay that could indeed get permutations to how the league turns out in the Apertura. But let's go straight into it. Let's go straight to what we saw last night, Fede, and introduce you first, because I think if you're a Cerro fan or even a Libertad fan, I think you could feel a bit of disgust in a way of the results that you got traveling away from home.
Yeah, hi Roberto. Hi Ralph. Yeah, I'm totally with you. These were not the results that either Libertad or Cerro Porteño wanted to get in these away games playing for Libertadores this week. Libertad had a very tough game against Táchira. I did not think we were going to see that side of Táchira, a very strong team actually, and a very weak Libertad team that we've seen over these last couple of games, especially what's happened in the league. They've lost two in a row, and they've opened up the opportunity for other teams also to get a chance to win this championships, especially Cerro Porteño, and maybe even Olimpia can get into it if they do something in the upcoming classic Super Classico next weekend, playing at Cerro Porteño's ground. Obviously, Cerro Porteño was coming in strong after beating Libertad as they headed to Peru, as they headed to Lima to face Alianza. A team, in the way that I see it, is just up to Cerro Porteño standards right now. It was kind of a good test for them. I thought they handled it pretty well in that first half, even though John had to stop several good opportunities that Alianza had to start off the match better off for them. But it was Cerro who took the lead, and then it was just Cerro defending that lead and really suffering the rest of the match. So I think a draw was just about right for what I saw between both games, between Libertad and Táchira and Cerro Porteño against Alianza. I don't think they deserved much more than that this week playing in Libertadores.
Yeah, certainly it's not the way that they wanted, and go to Ralph on this one, because I think for a lot of these Paraguayan teams, and we kind of discussed it with Fede last week, and I think it's and even with you, Ralph, I think it's just the case of just that these Paraguayan teams need to get the results, because we knew it was going to be a tough group for all of them, really. They all were in tough groups, and now going into this, with 2 games left in their schedule in the group, they can't fail. Like literally, they need to go in, if for some of these teams with a chance. I mean, for some of them they're already done for, but I think for a lot of these teams, they're still pretty much alive, but they need to get the maximum points in order to really go through.
Yeah, that's right. Hi guys. Hi everybody. It's put the pressure on, I think, because these were the two away games in Libertadores that they would have targeted 3 points, right? Because they were the games that they would have thought they could have a chance of winning. And so they haven't picked up those 4 points, and now really with the final two games it gets really tight. I mean, Cerro need to wait and see as we're recording, because we have Colo Colo Fluminense tonight. But it looks like they're gonna have to try and get something from Brazil, and then of course they're gonna have to win at home to Colo Colo, so they have it all on them. And then with Libertad, I think the big game is going to be that one with Nacional, a Nacional team that's doing so well at the moment, and so they're going to have to try and find a way to really improve what they've been doing in the Copa Libertadores. And I think the big question for Ariel Galeano is going to be, will he continue with this team, which is a slightly different team to the one that plays in the league, or is he going to try and bolster it? I mean, it's funny, we talk about Roque Santa Cruz. He did score. He's got a really good goal. But you saw that the team got much better when Ivan Franco came on, for example. So is he going to try and do something a bit different with that starting 11? Because at the moment it's been very strange, I think, the way he's rotated. And so yeah, it's really put the pressure, I think, on both the teams. And of course, as we're going to talk about, they're head to head right now in the league, so they can't just be focusing on the cup, because they want to be looking at trying to win the Apertura title. So it's got very difficult, I think, for both teams.
Yeah, and I think we'll go into right now with the first game that we're kind of fresh in our memory was the game over there in Lima, over there in Peru. It was between Alianza Lima and Cerro Porteño, both these two teams were coming into form that allowed them to really get them into a good spot, especially for Cerro Porteño. I think Cerro Porteño were in a good spot, given the fact that they were on good form domestically. We'll talk about that in a second, but they'd been playing very well under the new manager, Manolo. And it started out very well. First half, we saw Juan Iturbe get the goal, a really resurged Juan Iturbe, someone who's really found his feet at Cerro Porteño since returning after his odyssey in Europe, getting the goal in the 26th minute. And then you saw Barcos, Hernan Barcos, the talisman that's always been playing for Alianza for quite some time, scored 10 minutes from time. And ultimately, I think we saw, and I'll go to Ralph on this one, I think we saw a Cerro side that was very much too defensive for its like. I think we saw how tactically Manolo kind of felt there was some issues with some of the changes being made. And, certainly that's going to be a big factor moving forward because I think now it kind of feels like a missed opportunity. I think Cerro really got into this game looking with an opportunity to win. Yes, they were definitely tested very much by the Alianza attack. The defense definitely was tested a lot of times as well. But I think ultimately it looked like a winnable match. And now, as we speak, and we'll see what happens between Colo-Colo and Fluminense, Cerro are technically in the spot right now to qualify. They are technically there. Fluminense have to do them a big favor, though, beating Colo-Colo over there in Santiago. But now they have to travel to the Maracanã. They have to take on Fluminense and then host that Colo-Colo game, which we said I think was going to be the vital game to decide who goes to the round of 16. But I think had Cerro Porteño taken the win over there, I think it would have been much more easier. But unfortunately, they're going to have to settle for a point in this case.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Cerro doing very well in the league, as you mentioned. I think they won 7 in a row. And so people are starting to look at Manolo, that he knows what he's doing. He's getting things together. But in this game, I think we saw the same error that crept in against Colo-Colo when Cerro went a bit defensive and then they paid the price late on. So I thought the actual starting 11 is not so defensive. In the end, I think the big question was whether he would play Pachi Carrizo or he'd play Wilde Vieira. And he went for Pachi, who's a bit more attacking. So really you had like a front four in a way, because Carrizo was linking up with Churin and then you have Cecilio and Iturbe. But they were very open, and particularly who was very exposed was Arzamendia. So Arzamendia really struggled in that first half as they attacked down the right side, and actually Jean had to make some good saves before Iturbe put them ahead. And in a way, the goal was lucky, right? Because Iturbe comes right off his shoulder. He's trying to head the ball. He's not a great header of the ball, and it comes off the shoulder and loops in. A great cross though by Peralta, because really Peralta I think was looking for Churin. Churin's getting held, so I don't know if it could have been a penalty otherwise, but Iturbe comes in with the goal. And then what we saw at halftime is exactly what I would have expected, that he said, well, Manolo said, we need to protect a little bit Arzamendia, we need to protect the lead. So he takes off Carrizo and he brings on the much more defensive Jorge Morel. At that point, it seems to make sense. But as the game goes on, he becomes a bit more and more defensive. And you get by, I think, the 60th minute, he's essentially playing, or 66th minute, he's playing with 4 central midfielders, because he brings off Cecilio, he brings off Iturbe, on his Wilde Vieiras on, and he already have Morel, Pires de Mota, and Peralta. So suddenly it's like, whoa, there's not really much creativity. And he tried to go with almost 2 forwards, because he had Fernando Fernandez and Alfio Oviedo come off the bench. And so I think his idea was, well, we'll just try and hit the ball long and they can try and hold it up. But that didn't work at all. There was really no kind of time where you thought Cerro would score a second goal. And it was just like slowly Alianza Lima coming back into the game. And eventually they do get the equalizer through Barcos. I mean, I must say, Cerro had defended in the air really well up until that point, and Brock especially. I thought Brock had a good game, but with a player of Barcos' quality, if you give him those chances in the air, eventually he can make one count, and he does. And it's against Brock. Brock doesn't reach him, and so there the game is done. And really at that point, Cerro are too defensive. There's no way they're going to find the second goal. It was interesting. They really upped the intensity those last 10 minutes after the goal, but they don't have the right team at that point. And the big question, I think, for me is just why he left Aguayo on the bench again. He did the exact same thing against Colo-Colo, and they conceded late on. And he didn't want to risk Aguayo this time. He puts on Alfio Oviedo or Fernando Fernandez, two people that aren't in good form, and they concede the equalizer. So I think on there Manolo has a little bit of the blame because he's had that pattern before and it hasn't worked.
Same movie, different game. We've seen this before. We saw it against Colo Colo, and it's a shame to see it again from Manolo, the way he handled it in that second half. I'm totally with Ralph with those subs, and I was expecting for Cerro Porteño to really go all out for that second goal. I thought it was time to put in Fernando Fernandez, who's actually been coming in pretty well as a sub lately. He probably should have played more, and Morel was injured before this game. He was coming off that injury, so I was not expecting even for him to get game time. So yeah, that midfield looked way too defensive for what we're used to seeing from Cerro Porteño. I even think that kind of gives a bad message to the players that are trying to defend the lead also, right? And eventually, when you're trying to look at trying to get that second goal, it was kind of late. The players were already way tired. They had been playing a very important game not too long ago against Libertad. So the players are coming off, they're playing very important games. They're playing constantly. They're playing pretty much every 3 days. So the coaches have to be really smart about the way they use these players. And I do think, just like Ralph was saying, yeah, why you want to throw just the youngest kid out there and throw all the responsibility on him? But I think the young players can make a difference in this stage, in this part of the calendar, especially when certain players are really tired, when you have so many games on them. And I do think Aguayo could have made a difference. The same thing I think about Libertad. I think Libertad should have used a lot more of the young players. And one of the things I haven't seen from Galeano, who was working before he got the opportunity on the first team, he was working on the youth leagues. It's kind of weird to see that team not using now the young players in the Libertadores, at least show a couple of them or give them an opportunity. They've been playing with all the experienced players. Manolo has done that also. It's kind of been on his grip ever since he took over. He's done a good job because they have been picking up. Everybody's been playing better. People in defense, people in midfield, the attackers, even the forwards are scoring lately. Even Churin has been looking a lot better these last couple of games. But in this game in particular, Churin never had an opportunity while he was playing. He was doing the sacrifice. He was doing the dirty work. And Cecilio, Iturbe, just for a couple of moments, they looked like they could do something. And then there were all those opportunities missed on the counterattacks. Those opportunities that I think were very in reach. Maybe even three really good chances to hit him on the counterattack when the game was on the line for the Peruvians, because they felt like they needed to win it at home. I think they played with that pressure. But as for Cerro Porteño right now, they don't look like a Libertadores team to me, guys. I mean, the best player on this team yesterday was again the goalkeeper. That's a step back, John was the best player at the beginning of this season. We should have different players standing out right now. Robert Pires Zamolta was probably there also doing the best work in the midfield. And then who else? I mean, I need other players to be standing out right now, especially in these very important games. I wanted to see the same thing I saw against Libertad from Iturbe and from Cecilio, and I got that just for a couple of minutes. They're not consistent. They're not for 90 minutes. So I don't know. Maybe falling into the Sudamericana is the best thing for both Paraguayan teams right now, Roberto, Ralph, because they don't look like they can do much in Libertadores, to be honest with you guys.
Well, again, no team wants to be defeatist in that sense. And I think there's always been the debate that, oh, we should focus on our attention for the Libertadores because one, it gives you more money. And two, I think looking at it from a broad standpoint, are they even good enough to even qualify or to play in both, to be honest? Let's be real. I mean, right now, coming off the Libertad draw against Deportivo Táchira, obviously not the result that Libertad wanted, but, at the time of recording, Libertad are in third place with 4 points. They're in that Sudamericana spot, but only 3 behind Nacional, who got the draw against River Plate the other day. Libertad have to go to River Plate to play at the Monumental to try to get a result, and then host Nacional, similar in the sense that really them and Cerro Porteño and Colo Colo are fighting for that spot for the round of 16. I mean, Fede, Is that still the case? I mean, do we still see after these results that, yeah, these are two teams that could make the round of 16? Or, like you said, is it really just them trying to make it to the Sudamericana? Because I don't know, man. It's tough.
Yeah, just like Rob was saying, I mean, you're with the calculator right now, thinking how many points does Cerro need right now? I mean, they need to get something against the Brazilians, and they obviously need to beat Colo Colo. So it looks really hard for Cerro Porteño to pull both situations out. And the way I see it is they lost their opportunity. This was their shot, and they had it pretty much the whole game. They were winning, so to me, it looks like they might fall in Sudamericana. I think they're going to fall short either against the Brazilians or fall short against Colo Colo. I think they've lost their opportunities. I thought Manolo Jimenez should have gone all out. And as bad as I feel about this, hopefully I am wrong, just like I was predicting last week's certain games. But as of right now, I mean, I believe that Cerro just let go of their only chance, Rap, to win an away game. They had it.
Yeah, I remember when we previewed the groups and we did say specifically about Cerro, they don't have a particularly difficult away trips in terms of going to Lima and going to Santiago. It's not like then it's not altitude, it's not very long. And so to only take 1 point from those two games is maybe it's I don't think it will be enough to qualify in the top two, especially because Fluminense don't seem particularly strong. So I wouldn't count out that Colo Colo gets something from today's game, and then that makes it even harder for Cerro. So yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult because it will essentially, I think Cerro will really need to do something in Brazil to have enough, even if they do beat Colo Colo at home. And then flipping to Libertad, yeah, Libertad have it even harder because I think Nacional are playing so well at the moment. Like we just said, they took a point off River. So they seem to be at almost another level. And I think the big problem for Libertad, if we just want to talk about it quickly, and this is why I think they conceded that first goal, is their central defense is very slow. They have a really slow central defense partnership. In fact, Cerro have a similar problem. But I think that's really been, they found that really hard to defend well, especially on the counter attack and especially in these kind of games, because it's two fairly older defenders. And it's just been, it just seems to be an issue with transitions and trying to reset. And so they concede a lot of goals, and that's going to make it very difficult, especially against a Nacional team who we've seen who have their Paraguayan players at the moment, right? But a Nacional team that's attacking very well and scoring goals. So I think it's going to be very difficult. Hopefully, like I say, like Fede said, hopefully we're wrong, and they both get that second spot. But it is tending more towards Sudamericana.
Well, but Cerro does have uh, a young defender they can use, Ralph. Ronaldo de Jesus has been waiting for his opportunity. They just haven't given him. They just haven't given him the opportunity in big games. He's usually coming off as a sub. I think he's even played a couple of Libertadores games, but I thought it was a good opportunity for him, even in a game like this one, where his team was pretty much in the box defending the whole game. That was also a change, a sub I thought Manolo could have done in this game, even putting a player like that, because that's a player we're going to see in France in just a couple of weeks from now. So that's a player that maybe, you know, Cerro needs to show also. They need to put him out there because that's probably the next player they can sell out of many that they have actually. But looking at different defenders, and especially when you're talking about the way that they defend, and in certain games they need fast defenders like they had in certain moments. I do think Ronaldo de Jesus can be a solution.
And it's funny just quickly to finish it. Sorry, because I know we're going over, but like the comparison between Manolo, who worked with the Cerro youth team, that's what he was doing last year, right? And then you have Ariel Galeano at Libertad, who came through the youth setup as well. But they both seem almost a bit too. They don't want to trust their instincts and use some of those players they work with. So it's interesting that to see that happening.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough here moving forward. We'll obviously talk about what they have to do, both Libertad and Cerro Porteño in their next game away to Fluminense and River Plate respectively. We'll have to wait and see what happens there as we switch gears now to the Copa Sudamericana, where wasn't really much to cheer about except for one team. Obviously, we can officially say that Nacional have been eliminated. They lost 2-0 to Corinthians at the Defensores del Chaco after 1 point after 4 games. Their Sudamericana dream is over, but it is not over for technically two teams that are still technically in a position to go to the round playoffs. We have Sportivo Luqueño, who again they also didn't really do much from their sake. They got a 0-0 draw against Coquimbo Unido over there at the Defensores del Chaco. But I think the big one, and I'll go to Fede on this one, I think the missed opportunity, I think, here was, again, Sportivo Trinidense failing to get a result against Boca Juniors. 2 losses now in very narrow fashions. Trinidense actually got the lead before halftime for Aranda, just a minute before halftime. But then it was Figal and Cavani in the 92-minute mark to give Boca Juniors a 2-1 win to put them in a good position. But technically, of the way that it looks, Trinidad are in last place with 3 points. Nacional Potosí are in 4. But again, it's Boca Juniors with 7 right there, and then Fortaleza with 9. So it's looking very, very late for Trinidense, and it sucks because they've been playing so well. They've been getting the results that they've been getting. Okay, they couldn't get it against Fortaleza, but they barely Boca Juniors on both ends, and I think that's more of a detriment of how bad Juniors is rather than how good Trinidad have been. It just sucks that they haven't been in that position to put themselves in the knockout round playoffs.
Yeah, I don't want to take all the credit away from Trinidad. I do think they kind of played really well both games, especially in Bombanera. At Bombanera, they deserved a little bit more even. The refs were on top of the players. Also, that was kind of something that we saw that was on the players' minds in both games for Trinidad. Even the coach, I think, said something after the first game. Jose Arrua, he was kind of angry about that situation, the way the refs were giving all the calls for the in big plays for Boca. And in this game, when it ended, also he had a problem there with Cavani. He ran by them, and he even got a red card after the game was over. So it was kind of a heated matchup between Chinidense and Boca Juniors, just like I was expecting, just like I was waiting for. It was their first experience also for many of these players, and you're thinking, can they do it again next year? Probably not, because right now they look really bad in the local league. I mean, they're almost last. It's Nacional and Trinidad, 2 teams that really were not ready to play both competitions. And this is what happens when you have a league that does not have enough teams, and when certain teams that do not deserve to play the Sudamericana end up playing it, and then they can't handle the both competitions. I mean, that's what's happening right now to certain teams. I do think these 2 examples are something that even the FA needs to look into. I mean, are these teams going into the Sudamericana to compete? Are they going just because of the money? What are they really doing in Sudamericana? Because they're not really competing that much. Even though I am talking about all this, I do want to give credit to Trinidad and just the way they linked up in these games. They played as a team. They play with that team spirit, and they really fought out there. They had the opportunities to win both games. You saw that their opportunities in the first half. Andrada was the player that had the best opportunities. He had one before he even scored the goal, and you could see that it was very special for the players. I mean, Andrada took his shirt off. He went a little crazy there with the subs at the bench. And then the yellow card he got because of that situation came back to him because he got another yellow card and he went off. So he went from being the hero of his team to leaving his team with just 10 players out there. And I do think that was a problem for Trinidense in that second half. And then you had another late mistake from De La Cruz, went up to try to take the ball away from a Boca player, and he put the elbow right on the face. So you got those mistakes that you kind of made it easy for them. Also, obviously, Cavani pulled through in that last game, that last play, and Boca was the one that ended up celebrating. But it did not look pretty, Rob. I mean, it was Boca all over the stands. They were pretty much the home team at Cerro Porteño's ground, which did not look pretty. Also, after Carol G, we got to say, we got the Superclasico coming up on that ground. And I don't know, there was barely grass. The players, even after the game, said that it was very dry. It was really hard to play there. So I don't know what kind of super classical we're gonna get on that turf after Carol G left it like that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, well, going first to Trinidense, then I'll go to Karol G. But what I always like about Jose Arrua is he does try and take the game to other teams, right? As much as Trinidense, he's never going to really set up like super defensive and try and play for a draw. He's always looking to get a result, and it brought them the lead. And I think that was a fantastic moment, like Fede was saying. A lot of those players won't have experienced that, won't have expected to play against Boca, and even less be winning against them, right, in a continental game. But then I suppose it played out that almost the perfect story for most people and for headlines, because you kind of, not us, we wanted Trinidad to win, but the neutral kind of wants Boca to mount a comeback and someone like Cavani to score that free kick goal at the end, which was, that's the quality that you don't see every day in Paraguay. So if you're watching that and someone like Cavani showing up and scoring that goal, then I think it kind of plays well into the storyline of what you want. But yeah, just to talk a little bit about the pitch is worth mentioning. So Paraguay's had a lot of rain. I mean, people know about what's going on in Brazil at the moment, but Paraguay has similar weather systems, so it's not as bad as what we're seeing in Brazil, but a lot of rain, like unseasonably high, and that caused Karol G concert to be cancelled, but everything was already set up on the field. So instead of only being there for 1 day, everything's set up on the field for 2 days, so the grass gets less time to grow back. And so you have the rain, you have the concert, they had to play this game, and then we're going to have the Superclasico. So suddenly that the field is not really in great condition, whereas it's been one of the better fields in Paraguay. But it is a shame that all these kind of incidents have happened just before what should be the biggest game, which is the Superclasico, and we're not going to have those excellent conditions that you would want. You would want everything to be like building up for that, and it's kind of been the opposite. As Cerro look to make money, which is what people have to do with these big stadiums. They need the concerts to try and get some of that investment back into the stadiums. We're not just seeing it with Cerro in Paraguay, we're seeing it across Latin America. A lot of these things happen to try and recoup some of your money that you put into the stadium.
And obviously, we need to mention about Sportivo Emiliano. They're the team that kind of the only team to really get a result from Paraguay, from the Paraguayan team this week. They got a 2-1 win over Danubio, which Raul puts them in a really good spot right now. They're in with 7 points. I mean, they've been playing well so far. Yes, they did suffer the loss to Paranaense at the beginning, but then they got the draw at Danubio. They beat Rayo Zuliano. They beat Danubio again, and now, I think it's the case of them now having to face Rayo Zuliano, which is kind of the weakest team. The fact that they've only scored 1 goal and conceded 17 at the minute. I mean, they're already eliminated, but I think for Emiliano's case, I think if they're able to get the result there, it won't matter what happens against Paranaense because they're going to qualify for the round of 16 either way. It's just a case of what happens to Danubio if they can do them a favor. Sorry, Paranaense could do them a favor against Danubio. So I'm in a really in a good spot to qualify to the knockout round playoffs, which is really good considering how for them they've kind of been gaining a lot of money from Copa Paraguay, playing in the league, all that kind of stuff. I think and then of course the Sudamericana, if they can able to do this and see whatever tie they have, they're really in a good spot to go into a technical knockout stage.
Yeah, it's I think the story of the Sudamericana for the Paraguayan teams has been that Emiliano, that draw they got against Danubio originally, that kind of gave them a little bit of the confidence or more maybe the incentive to say, well, we should look at this tournament. We might be able to do something here, because I'm sure they would have felt they could have beaten Zuliano, which they duly did, and so it set everything up for this game. I think this was the big game, and they were at home. If they could beat Danubio, they put themselves in the driving seat, and they went out and they played really well with, they have a coach with a lot of experience, who usually likes to set up a bit more defensively, but they went out the blocks and got that 2-goal lead. And so now it sets it up really nicely because, like you say, I mean, they'll probably lose to Paranaense, who have been, I think, the best team in the Sudamericana because they've won every game. And then you would hope that Paranaense do the same against Danubio. Danubio will probably beat Zuliano. So then it's all up to Emiliano to beat Zuliano in the Anno derby at the end. So you would expect they can do it, right? You would really think, looking at the quality of Zuliano, who have struggled so much, and the fact that Emiliano will now be at home to them and having won in Venezuela, you really think they've got a great chance. And just the money, like you were talking about, it's going to make a huge difference to this team. It's a team that doesn't, they have their own stadium, but essentially it's not a stadium they can even play regularly in because it's not up to standard. So, I mean, just having all of this money, they don't really make money from player sales because they're not, again, where they're based, their youth team, they're not really able to capture many players because all those players will end up in somewhere like Libertad. They're very close to Libertad. So, I mean, it's just such a great boost for the club. And it'll be good to have at least one Paraguayan representative in the next round, although we might have more dropping down from Libertadores. You never know.
Yeah, and just the way they did it, also, guys. I mean, they were down in this game against Danubio, and they ended up coming back. I mean, this is a team that's always showing that kind of character. I mean, the game they won against Olimpia in that ground that was just full of Olimpia fans. There were only like 20 Emiliano fans in those stands. I mean, these guys are made they for these kind of games, for these kind of atmospheres, and they don't fear that. I think they kind of they like those challenges, and Pedro Sarabia has clearly known how to take the best out of his players. Also, that's something I've also wanted to mention because he looks like a very good coach. Every team he's picked up, he's always done a great job with them, and now to see him do that in the international stage when others Paraguayan teams haven't been able to do it. It's Ameliano, a very small team that's going to have a brand new stadium at the end of this year. They just keep on building. They just keep on getting bigger and bigger as a club ever since they came to the first division. So maybe it's the team also to follow right now because they are the team that's pulling through in the international stage, and they're doing it in quite a fashion also. I mean, they were the only team, I believe, that scored 4 goals, even though it was against Juliano, it wasn't Venezuela, whatever you want. But they were the only team that was able to say, "Hey, we got 4 goals on this game, and we got something to show for in Sudamericana as of right now." And they're coming into these last couple of games with a chance, with a shot to make history and to qualify, Roberto.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a good story for them, and I think we're gonna have to wait and see what happens if they continue this consistency, because I think that's the important thing for them to continue in this sense and be able to be consistent on all fronts, really moving forward as we switch gears now to what's been going on in the local league, because we did see a bit of a shakeup. We did see a bit of a shakeup over the last few days. We saw a big game between Cerro Porteño and Libertad over there at La Huerta. And for the first time in over a decade, I think I want to say it was 13 years, something like that, or 12, Cerro Porteño got the 3-1 win over Libertad. A brace from Iturbe, who again was the man of the match. 2 assists from Carrizo, by the way, who also played a top game. We saw Tacuara get a goal in the 49 minutes to equalize, but it was Cecilio Dominguez, the show of the wingers, really, getting the goals to help Cerro Porteño not only win, but now go top of the league after Libertad dropped points. They are still level with 32, but because of goal difference, a +3 goal difference, Cerro Porteño are in a good spot right now, top of the league, and it comes at a good spot as well, Ralph. They get to take on Olimpia next. Talk about a big game right after you beat your kind of your nearest rival in this kind of competition. Well, now you have your bitter rival played this weekend at well, oh yeah. I mean, first of all, to talk about the result for Cerro Porteño, they definitely needed it after the way that they've been playing under Manolo. This result helps them a lot, and I think it really boosts them for the weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean the Libertad game was really excellent. It was the Iturbe and Cecilio Dominguez that we saw at the very beginning of the season, I think, and we had such high hopes. And then Cecilio, if you remember, he got dengue and he dropped out, and then he didn't really recover. And Iturbe was sort of having these ups and downs. But then we saw them come together again in this game in the big moments, and that's kind of why you'd signed them partly for this, also for the Libertadores, of course. But they really clicked and they really played very well. And he set up again with a very similar team that we just talked about against Colo Colo. So he has also Pachi Carrizo. It makes it much more attacking. and they really took the game. They took the game to Libertad in their backyard, in the Huerta, and they got the results. I mean, it makes things very interesting now. Yeah, going into the Superclasico. I mean, the Clasico is going to be totally different. We've always said it's a game apart. Like form goes out the window, but you do see Cerro coming into it now on this really good run of games, especially in the local league, where they're not just winning, they're scoring usually 2 or 3, in this case 3. They're scoring multiple goals. So I think what we're looking at is a team that's kind of running really well and working really well to Manolo's plan.
Yeah, I think you're getting the best out of everybody right now from Cerro Porteño, and you have this team that's kind of confidence in the sense that they've just been winning and winning. They're on this winning form right now, and they took that to Libertad, just like Ralph was saying. I mean, they put that offensive team. I don't know if you would have played like that if Libertad had everything or everybody available, because they were missing Lorenzo Melgarejo, Antonio Barreiro, their wingers also. So they pretty much had nobody attacked by the sides. It was the slow forwards trying to get at the slow defenders of Cerro Porteño, like Rob mentioned before. So it was not a pretty sight every time Libertad tried to do something, and Cerro just kind of waited on them with certain points, and especially in the second half when this team needed to try to attack a bit more. So Cerro did pretty much a perfect game in that sense. I don't know how they're going to do in their ground now, especially with what we talked about, just how the grass is going to be. I don't know if they're going to be that comfortable. Maybe we're going to see a team that's going to have to put the ball up there a little bit more, and that's something that fits Olimpia a bit more, because Ralph was saying, yeah, on the Super Classicos, you leave the forms out, you leave the pretty football out of the way, and Olimpia has not done well trying to play pretty. They have not looked pretty at all, but they can still be champions looking this ugly, not playing football at all in that midfield. But they can still do it because they're still winning, and they've managed to win. I don't know what's going on with this team. I mean, this would be really weird if it ends up happening. I mean, if this Olympia ends up taking it, because Libertad played really well in the first part of this tournament when they had everybody. I think they'll eventually have everybody available again, but will it be at on time or will it be too late? Will Cerro Porteño just run them by? Because right now we have two teams up there in the first spot, but Cerro has the advantage of winning the championship if they end up with the same amount of points. So Olimpia can do it if somehow they win the Super Classico like they did against Luqueño, not deserving it at all, but getting that Breda late goal, of doing it just like they did against General Caballero, being lucky, and General Caballero not getting that second goal, and then just taking it away with that super sub with Breda coming back and scoring 2 goals. I mean, Olimpia has those players, Roberto. They can do it, and they have done it before. They won in Cerro Porteño's ground. Cerro looks like the best team right now in Paraguayan football, but Olimpia keeps on winning, keeps on staying alive, and they want to fight it.
They do want to fight it. I think it's going to be a very interesting Super Classico, and they always are. We know this. We've been saying it over the years. I think we understand the importance of this, but I think with the obligation, and especially the way that Cerro Porteño have been playing, they've been playing so well. They got the result against Libertad. Okay, their Libertadores campaign has been hot and cold, but in comparison to what Olimpia have been doing, Cerro Porteño should be favorites in this one, and they will. And I think they are. And I think, going into predicting this game, I think it's going to be a very, very tight affair. But ultimately, I think Cedro will do it. I think they're going to do it. I'll say 1-0 just for the sake, because I think it's going to be very tight. I think Iturbe is going to shine again. I think he's had a sensational time so far. Maybe even Aguayo gets a chance to go in and try to shine in such a big game where the entire country is watching. I think that's someone to also keep an eye out. But I think Cedro will do it, man. I really do. I think Olimpia under Martin Palermo, yes, they've been getting results, but sometimes the way that they play, it's not that pretty. So I don't know if that's going to be enough for them to get a result over there. No, oh yeah, that's just my opinion. Fede, look at you. You're feeling a bit. I don't know if you're frustrated. I don't know if you're think about this game. It's a big one. It's a
Go
big
with
one.
Ralph. Go with. I gotta think a bit more. Go with Ralph, please, please,
Okay,
please.
okay. Age before beauty. Fine. Go ahead, Ralph. What say
Olim-
you about this one?
I mean, Olympia, what they do at the moment, what's working for them is they're very direct. So, like we're saying, it's not very pretty, and They're very direct, and that suits the some of the players they have like that are coming back in, like Rodney Redes, like Derlich Gonzalez. They can work with that with the when the ball's loose and the ball's running around. And Cerro can't in defense, as we just talked about, that slow defense. But then on the flip side, if this game does become very end to end or a lot of transitions, if Cerro have Iturbe, Cecilio, if Aguayo's playing as well, these players can kill you on the counter attack as well. That's actually what they missed against Alianza Lima. That by that point he'd subbed them all off when the game was becoming becoming more kind of end to end. So it's quite hard. I mean, I don't think it'll be 1-0 actually. I think we'll see both teams scoring. I think we'll have plenty of chances. I think it will, at some point, it's going to open up. Either it will start like that or we'll see towards the end of the game it opens up. But I'm going to say a draw. I think it's going to be a draw. I think both teams will. I think Olympia will kind of do what they've been doing by somehow getting a goal when you're not expecting it.
Fede, I predicted a win for Cedro. Ralph got a draw. Do you want to be the contrarian or do you want to agree with one of us?
Another draw, Ralph. We had all draws last year. You want more draws this year? I mean, let somebody win already. Yeah, that was something that I was just remembering, just like Ralph was saying, as he was saying, a draw. I was like, last year, all draws. They were all pain, no good games. No. I want to see a team winning it this time around, and I want to see a tremendous ending of this Apertura. So I'm gonna stick with my candidate at the beginning of this tournament. I'm gonna go with Olympia. I'm coming off a very bad week for my predictions. I thought Libertad was gonna pull through. Cerro ended up winning after 16 years at Libertad's ground. That was something weird. But the tournament just heated up. I mean, it's on fire right now. And I want Olympia to get in that fight. I want it to be a fight in the mud until the end. So I'm going to go with Olympia pulling it through. I don't know. Maybe it's that field with no grass. It's not pretty. It's not going to be a pretty Superclasico, but Olympia's going to get it somehow. That's what my gut is saying right now, Robert.
Well, certainly it's very telling when all three of us have different predictions. So one of us is going to be right, but I think it shows like, yeah, this is going to be such a hard Super Classico to pick. I don't know what the bookies are saying at the minute. I'd have to double check, but I'd imagine Set are our favorites, but very close. But yeah, man, I wouldn't put money on this one because it's so tight and it's so open. But yeah, I mean, look, if Olympia do get that result, I mean, yeah, that just bursts is wide open. Of course, we have to wait to see what Libertad can do as well. But if Olympia can get themselves into that race, man, I mean, just about a month ago, we thought Libertad were going to go and run away with it. And now we're going to potentially have three teams. I mean, what a way to end the Superclasico with what, 5 games left or something for this? So yeah, I think that's what we want as neutrals.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on this. That's what I want to see. I want to see those last weeks with everybody following each team because these last couple of tournaments it's only been between Cerro and Libertad. So it would be great if Olympia can get into the league, especially because that's all they have. They don't have any international cups left. They don't. Their fans are not. They don't have their stadiums yet. They have to wait until November. So pretty much all they have is these kind of small moments at the end of the games, like it happened against General Caballero. Maybe it can happen in the Super Clásico with just a goal from somebody just making it happen, and they could just do it, Roberto. They could take it away from the big teams in a very bad moment. We gotta say for Olympia, it has not looked pretty at all this whole season. There's been rumors about Martín Palermo not going through every single game, but he's been pulling through somehow. So I'm still believing.
Yeah, exactly. It's been, I think, in terms of a tournament, maybe the quality hasn't been as high because we've had those tournaments where Cerro and Libertad have been almost getting record points and just really pushing each other. So maybe both of those have come down a little bit, but it's made it much more exciting. And what we've seen is, I would say, a very defensive tournament. If you look at Libertad, Cerro, and Olimpia, all three concede just a little bit less than 1 goal a game. And no one's running away with it. I was looking at the scoring charts the other day, and I think the top scorer only has like 6 goals or 7 goals. And with 16 games in, it's like no one's really blown it away. But that's made it more exciting because I think we were getting bored that towards the end of these tournaments, it was like, oh, I think it's Libertad and Cerro, but Libertad are probably going to do it again. Whereas now, we're really not sure. And yeah, an Olympia win would obviously throw really throw like things into the mix, and it could become a 3-horse race with just a few games to go.
I think it's
But
it's
I think it's been much more exciting and fun to follow this season.
Absolutely, and I think it also coincides with what's going on with the Libertadores. Are they going to do it? Are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? So it's like you have these two things where if you're a Libertad, a Cerro fan, or even an Olimpia fan as well, I mean, you're kind of looking at what the situations are of like of where you're at. So yeah, this game is going to be big. It's going to be huge. I think I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be a very, very tight affair, and we'll obviously cover it here on Guarani Vision as we always do, and also what's going on with our teams in the Copa Libertadores and the Sudamericana. So for myself, Roberto Rojas, thank you so much for listening in. Fede Perez and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much. See you soon.